Well, hello again there, Calvary Bible Church. Pastor Jay coming at you on this Wednesday. It is day 3 of our Passion Week video series in which we are considering what are some of the proofs of the resurrection, right? We as believers, we believe in the resurrection. It is the glue that holds Christianity together. Without it, there would be no Christian faith, and we generally don't have a problem accepting that. But are there proofs that we could consider that we would be able to share with others, or even proofs for you who may be watching this that maybe you say, I'm not sure about this resurrection thing, and I'm curious to know what it's all about. So yesterday we talked about just Jesus himself and the historicity of Jesus, the fact that he was a real person. We talked about the testimony of the Scriptures and what the Scriptures say about him, as well as his resurrection, the fact that his identity was confirmed as him being God, and the fact that he did all of these miracles, and these miracles were never challenged even in the pages of Scripture, that even his enemies, they didn't doubt his miracles, they just attributed them to Satan because they didn't want to believe that Jesus was indeed God. All right, so now here we are on day 3, and we're going to look at 2 more proofs of the resurrection. The fact that Jesus' death was indeed certain, and that the burial of Jesus was public and secure. All right, so what do I mean by that? So the death of Jesus, the fact that it was certain, and this is interesting because critics like to say, well, this was all a big hoax. The disciples were perpetuating a hoax regarding Jesus' resurrection, and we have to say that this is a preposterous idea for many of the reasons that you're going to see over the next few days, not the least of which is that most of these men would be martyred for their Christian convictions. And consider this: people will die for something they truly believe in, but nobody is going to die for something that they know is a lie. All right? So this idea that it was all a hoax, some people like to say, well, Jesus never really died. He wasn't actually dead when they put him into the tomb. The fact is the Roman soldiers were experts in execution, and it would be just absolutely incredible to think that Jesus, when they were done with him, was not actually dead on their watch, that he remained alive. Let's take this a step further. Okay, let's say that he was buried alive. There would also be no way that he could have exited the tomb on his own with the wounds that he sustained through the crucifixion. Roman soldiers were experts in torture. They were experts in just keeping somebody just barely alive until they were either died on their own or they had to actually break their legs so that in the case of crucifixion they couldn't push themselves up on the cross and they would basically suffocate. The Bible affirms Jesus' death when it speaks of him breathing his last in Mark 15, verse 37. And then we had a Roman soldier who does not break his legs, but instead, seeing that he is already dead, he thrusts a sword up in his side and pierces his heart, for blood and water came out. We'll just read this passage here. It says, so the soldiers came, this is John chapter 20, beginning in verse 32. So the soldiers came and broke the legs of the first man, meaning one of the other criminals that was crucified along with Jesus, and of the other who was crucified with him. But coming to Jesus, when they saw him, that he was already dead, they did not break his legs. But one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and immediately blood and water came out. And he who was seen has testified, and his testimony is true, and he knows that he is telling the truth, so that you also may believe. It's also interesting to note that no ancient sources, even antagonistic critics, ever disputed the death of Jesus. So yes, the death of Jesus was indeed certain. Now, secondly, the burial of Jesus was also public and secure. Critics like to say, well, the disciples, maybe they went to the wrong tomb, right? And so, they They didn't see that they had gone to the wrong tomb and the tomb was open, and okay, well then he must have resurrected. Let's evaluate the facts here, okay? So Joseph of Arimathea gave the tomb for Jesus to be laid in, and different friends helped wrap him up and bury him. So in that sense, we could certainly say that it was a public burial, even under guarded watches instructed by Pontius Pilate. And because so many people were involved in Jesus's burial, it was absolutely obvious where the tomb was. So this idea that the disciples, just got it wrong and showed up at the wrong tomb that's pretty crazy, as they themselves were the ones that put him there. Okay? Now, as for the disciples or someone else stealing the body, because that is another common thing that you will hear, well, somebody got in there and took the body of Jesus, making it look like then, or perpetuating the story of resurrection. You have to know that the Roman guard, they took their jobs very seriously. And if there was an instance of a body being stolen under their watch, the guard or guards, they would be executed. They would lose their lives. Or if they hadn't done their job correctly, the punishment for them would have been death. And some would say, well, they fell asleep. Those guards fell asleep. Same thing. If that were the case and the body was stolen, the guards would be executed. So that's just, again, not a reasonable explanation by any means. Now, remember too that you had this stone that had been rolled in front of the tomb. And the stone would have been this gigantic stone that covered the whole doorway. It would have been incredibly heavy. It would have taken several men to have rolled it into place. And mind you, it was on an angle, so the stones would kind of drop in elevation, so to just get it easily into place. So to get it moved out of the way would take even more men. And you think, even if the Roman guards had fallen asleep, could 4 to 6 men actually roll this stone up and not wake up the guards? Unless this band of frightened disciples showed up and they did some karate moves, and got rid of the guards themselves before rolling the stone out of the way. Again, both of these theories just fall apart because of no evidence for support. We could also say, what would the motive have been for the disciples? You have this scared bunch of folks that hid in the upper room that would perpetuate, that would be persecuted for their faith. What would be the point of lying about this, or of trying to create some false understanding or idea that Jesus had resurrected? It again, it just doesn't make sense. So our 2 proofs today is that the death of Jesus was certain and the burial of Jesus was public and secure. We'll talk more tomorrow. Have a blessed day.